Well, hello there! Windows 11's big August update KB5124008 is upon us, and with it a bunch of quality improvements including some long-awaited features, so let's go. So we're gonna start with the biggest features part of the August update, that's taskbar features. We go to taskbar settings here, and we find this new option called taskbar position under the taskbar behavior section. We can now move the taskbar wherever we want, just like you can do on Windows 10. It's not trapped at the bottom anymore, so if you want to put it at the top, you can do that. If you want to put it on the left, you can do that. And if you want to put it on the right, you can do that too. You will notice a couple of changes to the experience whenever you set the alternate positions. For one, the Windows key X menu, or the right-click start button menu, is now upside down to keep mouse travel distance and time low, so you can still get to run by moving your mouse very little, just like you could on the button. You also notice that on vertical taskbars, the search box and the date and time are now shrunk into a search icon, and the abbreviated date and time not featuring the year, for example, to save up space. You'll also notice that if you turn on app labels, the taskbar gets wider if you have a vertical taskbar to make room for those labels, and the start button gets start text for the first time in ages. Now, that isn't the only new taskbar feature. You'll notice there's this new option for taskbar size. And if we expand the drop down, you can see we can now have a small taskbar. Again, just like we could on Windows 10, and this leaves more room for apps. You'll notice the clock is now one-line clock, the widgets button's a one-line widgets button. It only works on horizontal orientation, so either bottom or top. If you set left, it won't get any different. You'll notice the app icons will shrink, but that's not a new capability. It's the taskbar itself shrinking that's new, and that only applies to these orientations. So these are the biggest changes, but while we're on the taskbar, we'll also go to the quick settings menu where we have a few more changes. In the accessibility page, you'll notice that there's now a toggle for screen tint. When this shipped back in June, it didn't have this toggle, but now for consistency, there is a toggle here. Also, you can navigate the quick settings menu's Bluetooth page with a gamepad. So we'll move on to the next major feature of the August update, and that's an updated start menu, also part of K2. You'll notice that the start menu settings page has been updated with a bunch of new customization options. First, you can actually turn off entire sections of the start menu, so if you don't want to have the pinned list, you can turn that off. If you don't want to have the recent list, you can turn that off. And if you don't want to have all apps, you can turn that off. And yes, if you do turn everything off, you do get this. A blank start menu. Why do you want this? I don't know, but you can have it if you want. But more seriously, again, if you want to have just your pins, you can do that. The recent section in particular, that's what we'll look at next. That's been updated quite a bit. First, the content is now more relevant, so you won't get as much nonsense in the section. And you can also turn off recent and suggested files without having to turn off recent items in File Explorer and jump lists like you had to before. So that's quite handy. Additionally, you also notice that the section is actually called recent. It was called recommended before. Next, you'll notice that there's a new option for start menu size. So by default, since 2025, the start menu automatically changes size based on your screen space. But if you don't like that and you just want a small start menu like you had before, you can open this drop down, select small, and there you go. There's a small start menu, nice and clean with just the pins. If you want to force a large start menu, you can do the same, or you can just leave the default behavior, it's up to you. And lastly, you'll notice that there's also this new option to hide your name and profile picture on start. This could be useful in some demonstrations. You'll notice it replaces your profile icon with this generic My Account tile, and you have to actually click on this to open the account manager if you want to see account information. So that's pretty convenient. To complete the trifecta, we'll head to Windows Search, which has also received a big update. You'll notice that the homepage is now much simpler. Instead of search highlights on the right, you just have a list of recent searches with some more information about those recent searches. For example, what type of search they are. So you can see it says web search, app, system component, that sort of thing. You can also see when you search for them on the right, and if you hover over them, you'll get some quick actions. For example, you can pin to the taskbar or run as administrator. In the search results themselves, you'll also notice some changes. On the left, the results pane now shows more information about them at a glance. For example, for this file called .txt, you can see it says what type it is, a text document, and that it was last modified a year ago. If you open up the preview section, you'll notice that this is looking a bit different with an updated backplate, an updated look for the open button, and all the options are now behind this little drop down menu here. You also notice some changes to positioning, such as this text is now a bit more left aligned, and if you go back to web searches, you'll also notice that web searches are better. There's no more ads at the top of the results anymore, so you'll just see relevant content, and if you hate web searches, Microsoft also has you covered. Because if you go to privacy and security search settings, you'll notice that there's a couple new toggles here, one of which is for web searches, and if you turn that off, you will no longer get any web searches. So if I search for cool again, you'll notice it's just a list of files and apps. You can also turn off store results. If I search for candy here, you can see we have a few results for Candy Crush from the store. If you turn that off and you search for it again, you won't get any, so that's pretty convenient too. You'll also notice some miscellaneous changes. For example, if you search for a setting, you'll now notice, or a file, you'll notice that it's more likely to be the best match at the top above stuff like web results or other relevant settings, which is quite nice to see. You'll also notice that search is more stable and reliable, so it's less likely to crash, it's less likely to get stuck loading, it'll just work. And overall, this is a very big update to Windows Search, and one that's long overdue and very much appreciated. So next, we'll take a look at a security feature that's been delayed quite a few times, but is finally shipping: Administrator Protection. You can see I've already configured it in the local security policy, and so we'll take a look now. This is the feature that relies on principle of least privilege. That means admin rights aren't as ubiquitous anymore. They're only being given where they're needed. So for example, Task Manager is a place where you'll notice this. You can see there's a new button to actually elevate it yourself to run it as administrator, just like in Windows Vista and Windows 7. It's not elevated by default anymore. And this also leads us to this change. By default, Administrator Protection does work with Windows Hello and prompts for credentials on the secure desktop. So if you want to get past this consent prompt, you have to type in your PIN, and then it'll run Task Manager elevated, which is pretty nice. I will leave a link to a Learn page that explains how this feature improves security in the description. So another change in the August update is if you go to the Control Delete screen, you'll notice that the old Windows 8 spinning dots are gone from the login screen, the shutdown screens, and they've been replaced by the modern donut spinners that have already been on the boot screen since 22H2. So this is long overdue, and it's again part of that K2 effort to improve Windows 11 reliability and quality. So File Explorer also has a couple of changes, not the biggest ones, but the home page now opens a bit faster and it's a bit more responsive, so that improves performance. It's very nice to see, and it's part of a continued commitment to improving File Explorer performance. You'll also notice that the recommended section now supports touch scrolling. I don't have a touchscreen device, so I can't show this to you, but it is there. Next up is Windows Share, where you'll notice that Microsoft has added the option to turn off promotional apps. You can see here, these apps are not installed but that Windows thinks might be useful. If you don't want them, then you can now click this little three dots menu, select Share Settings, and you'll find this new toggle called Show Me Suggested Apps in Share Surfaces, and if you turn this off, go back to the share sheet, you'll notice it's now much simpler, just showing the stuff that you already have installed instead of suggesting you download other stuff. So if you really hate ads, promotions, that sort of thing, this is definitely a toggle for you. You'll also notice that the share settings page is actually a new name. It was previously called Nearby Sharing. So as usual, there are some general reliability improvements. You'll notice that I have the properties for Windows Health and optimized experiences up. This service has been updated to improve RAM usage, so you'll notice Windows using a bit less RAM. The improvement will likely vary and it might not be very significant at all. I haven't really noticed anything, but this should help improve performance on devices with 8 gigs of RAM. You'll also notice that switching between virtual desktops is now more responsive and smoother, which is always nice to see as the new animation was a bit buggy and stuttery. You'll also notice that the file copy dialog in dark mode is now a bit more visually consistent, which should fix a few bugs, and there are also a couple of changes to display settings. There are also some inbox app updates this month, mostly quality of life improvements. For example, Notepad now has better launch performance, so it'll open a bit faster, and that's always pretty cool. You'll also notice that indented lists are now more reliably copy-pasted without being messed up. And there are some other changes like better concurrent print jobs, support across different tabs, formatting with markdown files is now better, and there's a fix for an underscore rendering bug. The Photos app has also been updated. First, you'll notice it now supports opening SVG files, so if I double click this SVG file, you'll notice it opens up just fine, and I can go to the next one and that opens fine too, same for this one, so on and so on. You'll also notice that the photo viewer has been updated. The little bar at the bottom keeps most of its options but is now a bit smaller, which leaves more room for the image itself that's actually being viewed. The file info pane was updated as well. It shows richer, quote-unquote, info, so you have your options like copy path, open location here, and then you can see file name, date and time, etc, etc. In the top right, the section that shows links like designer has been changed to this open with button. That opens a drop-down menu containing things like file explorer, gallery and clipchamp. Notably, the designer link is gone, so it's also a little cleaner too. There are some other changes, like for example HEIC files now being savable in the original format while editing. The calculator has also been updated and it's a bit of a smaller one. You'll notice a few changes, for example the notation toggle in scientific mode is now correctly reset by the C or CE button. You'll also notice improved screen reader support, and there's a fix for an access key conflict between the view all history and view all memory options. The clock update this month is much smaller than the last one, which was quite big. This time around there's only a few changes, so for example tasks in the focus sessions view no longer disappear when they're completed, and sunrise and sunset times will also be more accurate. Lastly, the media player has been updated as well. So, for example, if you have a disabled playlist, it will now clearly show a disabled message. There are also improvements to track list rendering and local album art support, so the app checks the album folder for cover art to show. There are a couple of changes to Windows Update as well. If you put your PC to sleep before an update, then after that update is completed, it will go back to sleep by itself instead of staying awake. There's also a new update orchestration platform which is supposed to provide better app updates with a settings page here in settings apps. I don't actually see this, but a look at the build itself reveals that it should be available, so you may want to have a look yourself. Lastly, we'll move on to one miscellaneous change. If you go to optional features here, you will notice that WMIC is no longer available. If you search for it here, you'll notice it's not installed, and if you look at the available features list, it also isn't present. Now, Microsoft has been working on phasing this out for quite a while now, but this is the first release in which it's not available at all. Now, you may be wondering, but Phantom, how the hell do I get all of this stuff? Well, you can start by going to Settings, Windows Update, and making sure Get the Latest Updates as soon as they're available is turned on. Then, when August 25th, or date similar to it, comes around, you can check for updates and you'll see KB5124008 in your updates list. For the app updates, you'll need to head to the Microsoft Store, go to the Downloads page right here, and check for updates. These are delivered separately to the cumulative updates, so you may see them sooner, you may see them a bit later. I will make a video about how to enable these with Vive Tool, as this is quite a big update and I imagine a lot of you do want that as soon as you can get it. Thank you so much for watching. The year's not quite over, but this is most likely the highlight of the whole thing, so see you next time!